Shalom again, everyone. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.koshertorah.com. Bringing to you again today's daily Sefer Yetzirah lesson. This is lesson number 24. My, time flies when we're having fun. And of course, this is dedicated to the safety, to the health, and the well-being of all people around the world who are today facing trials and tribulations of all different kinds in our situation as it is. So, okay, let's get busy. In our previous class, I introduced to you the concepts in the 8th Mishnah of this first chapter. And we said that you're to silence your mouth from speaking and your heart from contemplating. And if your mouth runs to speak or your heart to contemplate, it says that you should return to the place. And that's why it says that the Chayot were Ratzu Veshuv, running and returning. And then upon this is established the covenant. And I read to you something real quick in a previous class where Rabbi Chaim in his commentary here says Ratzu is the numerical value of the angelic name Noriel, corresponding to Malchut, and Shuv, Veshuv, is the numerical value of El Shaddai, which is also Metatron. Now, I have to explain and elaborate on this, because the whole process of Ratzu Vashuv is something actually we echoed in a previous class called Sechel Tenudah, the oscillating consciousness. But it goes beyond that. Let's get into some realistic understandings of what Reb Chaim is talking about. When it comes to experiencing the sefirot, as you remember, they are blimah. They are force, not form. They are energy, not matter. As such, the laws of physics, which dominate that entire realm, is very different from our own. And as we've learned in numerous places, we have what is called a 5-level soul, which means grades of expanding consciousness. Or in other words, you are not just here right now. There is an entire part of you which is living in, aware of, and interacting with a completely different realm of reality that you, right now in this conscious little brains of ours, is completely oblivious to and unaware of. That level of consciousness, which we refer to as the here and now, that's called nephesh level of consciousness. What we're trying to expand into are those higher levels called ruach consciousness or neshama consciousness. And again, just one of my pet peeves here, it frustrates me when I see many of my peers write books and they go into elaborate philosophical discussions that say, this is what nefesh is, and this is what ruach is, and this is what neshama is. And I roll my eyes and, oh my God. You know, it's like they say the blind leading the blind. Oh, their insights are very nice, but it's not necessarily what's actual. Think about it like this. If you want to write a book which is going to outline the roadmap between point A to point B. For example, as you know, I live in Knoxville, Tennessee. If I wanted to drive to Los Angeles, California, or to New York, we can do right now, but there is the roads that you take, and there are things that you're going to see alongside the roads, etc., and so on. So, if I were to tell you, yes, on the road to California, you will see the ocean. Well, for those of you who know anything about the geography of where Knoxville, Tennessee is to California, it's an all inland thing. There is no ocean. So if somebody wants to write and says, well, there are oceans because blah, 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 and they want to create all kinds of proof texts, it might sound all well and good on paper, but it's not real. Ratzu Vashuv is a real experience, which is not theoretical and academic. This is the secret of what he says, Ratzu, the secret of the angel Noriel. Noriel is the same as Uriel. It's two sides of the same angels, one of the four of the Merkavah. The secret, according to that, is one side is the chesed, one side is the din, with Noriel being the din. What is din? Remember, din is the rigid structures, if you will, of the laws of nature in this world in which we live. In other words, the reality around us. So if we want to see, in quote, the, in quote, light of God, the light of God that we will experience in this level of consciousness corresponding to this reality, is that corresponding to Malchut, which we say corresponds to the name of Elohim. Remember, God, Elohim, in the beginning created the heavens and the earth. And that name corresponds to Hateva, which is nature. So this is one of the reasons why many peoples from different meditative paths have all gone out into nature and contemplated out there. Why the children of Israel in the days of the Exodus were brought out into the Midbar, into the wilderness. Why did they have to go into the wilderness? Why couldn't they just, found the city to hang out with or interacted with the trade routes and other peoples? No, they had to be isolated to experience what we call that heat bodedut experience, whether it be at the individual or collective level. Throughout the teachings of the Bnei Aliyah, those who make the ascent, as Rabbi Chaim would say, these are the people who would go out into the deserts and stuff to do their meditative practices. The Sufi know this, and they practiced in the same way. And many people in the Taoists, the Buddhists, they all know this. But the point of going out into the, in quote, wilderness or isolation is to come back out of that and to come into this world. Ratzu v'shuv. Now, the problem is, of course, many people get so emotionally intense in the experience, they become stoic. And they want to separate from the physical world because they think the physical world is evil and disgusting and bad. So they want to fast and do all kinds of weirdo stuff that all of these extremists do. That's very bad, because that is what it says here. If your heart desires to speak, or your heart to contemplate, your mouth to speak, your heart to contemplate, sorry, you got to take a step back. You could become so heavenly minded, you become no earthly good. This is what we call the realm of the klipot. So the reality is that which we call Noriel, the light of God in Malchut, is our path of ascent. No, you don't meditate on the name Noriel, call upon the Malach Noriel, but you recognize the, quote, secret therein, what it means to find the light of God within the natural environment, which then takes you into the introverted reality of one's higher self. That is, we say, the reflection of Zer Anpin, the small face of God within us. No, we're not God, but we are created in the, in quote, image of God. So if we want to find God, you can look everywhere around you. You'll see a reflection of the invisible hand. You can look deep within you, and you will find a reflection of the image. This is the secret of the running and the returning. Okay? So, when one wishes to ascend and experience the higher realm, needless to say, one must follow the rigid requirements of this physical world. You have to be, of course, morally righteous. That's a calibration of Yetzirah energy. You also have to be physically holy, because that calibrates other energies. Holiness is not a moral state, it's a physical state. So moral one way, righteousness is another way, and it brings the wholeness of things together. That with then the training of mind, you can shift into that higher state of altered awareness corresponding to the inner or higher self. And it's from that inner or higher self, the reflection of the Zer Anpin within, that is the place from which we will then contemplate the greater world. Because, in quote, that higher realm of consciousness within us is that realm of consciousness that's in the other's reality around us. Remember, it's not like we have to go there. We're kind of like already there. It's just that, if you will, the connection between here and there is severed. That's what we call result of the eating of the fruit of knowledge, good and evil, or the Hebrew biblical term karet, which means to be disconnected. We got to reconnect. And by calibrating everything in this malchut level to properly align with the sefirot level, that is how we do it. But like we learned from the example of the four who went into Pardes, the experience of the higher domain is very intoxicating. Now, in my previous class, I went very emphatic to warn against the use of any kind of mind expansion drugs. And I will reinforce my warning right now, because mind expansion drugs, they'll put you up there. It's like a booster rocket that'll get you up there. But the problem with the booster rocket is that it also, if you will, glazes over your eyes and you don't have a clear vision. And if you don't have a clear vision, then what you see is what we call klipot. Reb Chaim speaks about this, elaborates on this in the Sha'arei Kedusha, many a place. And again, take the Sefer Sha'arei Kedusha Helik Shlishi, part 3 class. And it deals with this Madura Klipot, as we call it. That's that realm that we have to go through. I'm going to try to get my hands here. Between this higher self of the Zerampin consciousness and the lower normal consciousness, all right? It's not just evil. Remember we said there's that disconnect. Well, that's that, in quote, place of klipot. What are these klipot? They're not demons. They're not the jinn, the earthbound spirits. You don't got the boogeyman out there so much to say that's out to get you, that you have to be afraid. But rather, recognize it as the psychological reality of what it is. Our own individual subconscious, as opposed to the unconscious, wherein which all the repressed content of our shame, guilt, remorse, and all that other negative stuff that we have brought upon ourselves, that's where it resides. That's the domain of the klipot. That's the, in quote, negative energy that we project out. And what do you think it brings back? So unless that is properly and clearly addressed before ascent to be cleared out, then you smash right through it. And it clings to you and blurs your vision. So when individuals take drugs and they smash through, they're going through the domain of the klipot, and they are not able to just dissipate it, neutralize it, make it go away. No, they take it with them. And that is what blurs their eyes. That's how come many people who go through these experiences have what's called a bad trip. They see all kinds of negative things. Those negative things are usually their own self-construction. Or they see within a state of self-delusion, or in other words, they see only what they are expecting to or wanting to see. So look at all these people who have, in quote, near-death experiences. Oh, I've ascended above. Don't doubt it. Could be their fantasy and imagination that's deluding them, or maybe that's real. Let's just, for argument's sake, say it's a real ascent. Fine. But what have they seen? Look at this. If you're having an experience from a Catholic, they will often see their Mother Mary, their Virgin Mary. Okay? What was that famous vision experience of those 3 girls? I think it was in Portugal. I forgot the name of it. This is one of those experiences. They didn't see Eliyahu HaNavi. They didn't see Shimon Bar Yochai. They saw within their own context. Protestant Christians will always see Jesus, but they will see Jesus in their fantasy image, blonde hair, blue-eyed, whatever, as opposed to an actual historical reality, which is completely different. Jews, well, what kind of Jews? If you are of Eastern European ethnicity, you might experience, in quote, tzaddikim, and you'll see them in the big fur hats called the streimels with the long payas, and they might speak to you in Yiddish. If you are of the Sephardic extract, North Africa, Middle East, you might see them wearing white robes and speaking to you in a language you would understand as Arabic or something similar. Everything is cultural. That is this vision of klipa, which separates the two worlds, and why it is so vital that it be removed prior to actual ascent. This is why the danger here is if your mouth runs to speak, if your heart runs to contemplate, all right? Be careful. Return to the place. That place is your own inner higher self. Makom, which Reb Chaim says here, this is Za. How do you get there? You got to get through the subconscious crap. You got to remove it out. And this is why the process, the teaching of the prophetic system, which I cover in the long version of this course, is specifically designed. You're going to have to sit down as an individual and say, okay, you'll forgive my choice of words, but it's necessary. What kind of crap do I got inside me? And how do I deal with it? Let me look over my life. How did I treat such and such a person? Am I at peace with what went down with that? Yes? No? Do I need to make amends? How did I deal with business with this? Did I, mess up the other guy? What did I do? Everybody, every one of us interacts with things on a daily basis. And sometimes we'll cut corners or do things which are not right, which inside emotionally create an imbalance which reflects as remorse, guilt, or shame. I haven't met a single human being in life, most likely including myself, where which that hasn't been the case. But in my personal case, when I went training for the Jungian psychoanalysis, you have to go through all of this stuff. You spend years and years in self-introspection. You get to know yourself well. This is shuv lamakom. Remember, the shuv is El Shaddai Metatron, Malchut Yesod. This is where we connect with that higher self. This is the meaning of the Hayot Ratzu Veshuv, that even the Hayot angels of the Merkabah, what is their purpose? Well, if you look at the Maaseh Merkabah, in all due respect to my friend Eric von Daniken, Chariot of the Gods, who thinks it was a flying saucer. No, Eric, it wasn't. It was a much deeper energetic experience of a transportation device, and that you're correct, of a higher dimensional plane. And these hayot going back and forth, they are the ones calibrating that psychic energy which keeps open the conduit between the Malchut and the Tiferet, all right? Yetzirah Asiatic to Yetzirah consciousness, by parting out that subconscious, like the parting of the Red Sea, and allowing the open clarity. It has to go up and down. This is always a vibrating movement, but it has to be cleared out. And this is why it says, V'al davar hazeh nicharet brit. Based upon this is the covenant established. What is that covenant? It's the covenant of balance and harmony between the worlds. We are in this world because we messed up the order of our lunch, if you will. We should have eaten of the symbolic tree of life before eating of the forbidden tree of knowledge, good and evil. Again, I discussed that in a previous class, and I elaborated that on detail from the Shara Psukim of Rabbi Chaim in our 8 Gates Shmoni Sharim. I think it's like 40 hours of classes I have on all the Kitvei for those of you who want it. But this is what it's all about. You have to deal with the inner work. And if you think that you're going to be able to just snap through it, it's not a problem for me. Yeah, I have no guilt, I have no remorse, no nothing. Oh my goodness, what's going to happen to you? The greatest level of klipa is denial. Denial, we say as a joke, denial is more than just a river in Egypt. The Nile, denial. Okay, But understand what I mean here. This passage through the fire is in many of the Hechalot literature called the Nahar Dinor, the fire, the river of fire. This is how we have to pass through our own inner stuff in order to have a clear insight from above. So this is the path. It doesn't happen like that. but it takes a while. It takes a process. And if you're willing to do this and go through the process, Noriel, light of God, bringing you to El Shaddai, Yesod, then that higher self within, that Se'er Anpin, that Metatron, and Metatron, even Avaram Abulafia, properly called the Sechel HaPo'al, the higher active intelligence, the higher self. He understood, he knew, because he experienced, and now so must we. Take this into account, and God be willing, I'll chat with you in our next class. Ariel Bar Tzadok here, KosherTorah School, KosherTorah.com. Check out our course pages. I'll see you next class. Shalom. Don't forget to say hi to Sierra.